Matthew Burchett, and this is Behind the Wings. And this episode is on America's iconic B-52 bomber, baby! Now I say this a lot, but how cool is this? You guys are getting a really inside look at this thing. Not everyone gets to do that. Bam! 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 Welcome to Behind the Wings. My name is Matthew Burchett. I'm the curator at Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum in wonderful Denver, Colorado. And get ready to learn about some of the most iconic aircraft ever, learn about some really cool aviation history, and generally come away with just an amazing appreciation for aerospace in general. You're not going to want to miss this. The B-52 Stratofortress came to life in 1945 when the United States Army Air Forces needed to expand its bomber capabilities. In 1955, the first Stratofortresses were delivered to the 93rd Bomb Wing at Castle Air Force Base in California. As America's big stick of diplomacy, the nuclear-capable B-52 was the nation's main Soviet deterrent during the Cold War. Designed to fly deep into Soviet territory to strike cities and industry with nuclear weapons, B-52s were on constant airborne alert from 1960 to 1968. Luckily, the big bomber never dropped a nuclear weapon in combat, but it certainly saw extensive action during the Vietnam War. With the lessons learned in Vietnam, America began to look for a replacement for the aging B-52. While the XB-70A Valkyrie and F-111 Aardvark were slated to fill the role of the Stratofortress, neither aircraft lived up to their hype, and the B-52 soldiered on. Even with the debut of the B-1 Lancer, the B-52 remained a part of America's nuclear triad. With continuous upgrades, the last B-52s manufactured in 1965 are still serving our country and are planned to serve until at least 2045. All right, that's enough chit-chat. Let's go explore the second oldest B-52 Stratofortress anywhere. Hey, welcome to this episode of Behind the Wings, which we're highlighting the B-52 bomber here at Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum. If you've ever been to our museum, you certainly can't miss this monstrosity out front. But what you may not know are some of the salient features of this aircraft. Take, for example, the wingspan. That's 185 feet wide. Now, for comparison's sake, that's nearly 2 B-17 bombers from World War II. How nuts is that? But even more nuts, the length. She's 159 feet long, which is 9 feet longer than our B-1A Lancer that we have inside. But guess what? Speaking of inside, we got places to go, baby. We decided to start at the end and work our way forward. So we are actually in the gunner's position of a B-52B. And I will say this, there's a distinct smell about old planes. And I know there's some guys out there that know what I'm talking about. I can't place it, but it's kind of funky. The B-52B was equipped with a quad 50 caliber machine gun turret, just like this one, but it had a radar gun sight. Now, as the B-52 got older and more complex, they went to a 20 millimeter cannon and finally to a 20 millimeter Gatling gun, and there was nobody that actually sat back here at all, and now they don't even have a gunner's station. Did you know that the B-52 bomber is the largest airplane to have an aerial kill? It's true. 24 December 1972, the crew of Diamond Lil encountered a MiG-21 fighter over North Vietnam, and the rear gunner shot it down with its 4 50 caliber machine guns, just like we have here. Now, you'll notice that this is not a large compartment, and you may or may not notice there's no ejection seat. So how did this guy get out? Well, guess what? There is a handle right here, but it's not for an ejection seat. It just makes the entire end of the turret fall away from the plane, which means that the guy just had to dive right out. Not gonna happen. Now, as much as I like being back here, because there is so much to look at, there's even more to look at up front. So let's make our way to the cockpit section, because we got a lot to talk about there. As I crawl through our B-52, there are some things you need to know about this aircraft. Like the fact that our B-52 is 64 years old. There's a saying in the B-52 community that goes, "This is your grandfather's B-52," which means it's possible that pilots today are flying the exact same plane their fathers flew. That's nuts! No other aircraft in the US arsenal has that kind of legacy. Okay, we've made it to the navigator's position. Yay! No more crawling! We're actually back here in what they call the black hole. And you can kind of see why. Not a lot of ways to look out of these tiny little windows. There's one here and one over to my right. But this is where the radar navigator sat, and just to my right was where the navigator sat. Now that sounds redundant, but in 1950s parlance, the radar navigator was actually the bombardier. And if you look at some of this equipment around me, you start seeing special weapons and ASM lock and internal bomb indicator light control, you know, all that kind of cool stuff. But right in front of me is actually the large radar screen that the bombardier would use to figure out where the target was and when exactly to drop, in this case, usually a nuclear weapon. Luckily, the B-52 never dropped a nuclear weapon in combat. Now, if you want to stay safe in a super scary environment, you definitely need a good EWO. He lived above us. Let's go see what he did. So we're up on the flight deck now. We've gone up a level from where we were before, and we're in the EWO station. And if you remember correctly, EWO stands for Electronic Warfare Officer. Now, when the B-52 was created, it was really meant to go straight into the Soviet Union and bomb cities and large factories and that kind of thing. Well, the Soviets knew we were probably going to come, and they had an amazing anti-aircraft system set up with AAA batteries, which is anti-aircraft artillery, and SAMs, and that was the big threat, the surface-to-air missile. They had the SA-2, which was an amazing piece of equipment. It didn't do great for us, but it was great for the Soviets. So the EWO was there to counter that threat. One of the things that he had at his disposal was the ALQ-117, and it was a suite of electronics that could literally prioritize all the threats coming at this plane. In fact, the EWOs like to say that it worked auto-magically, which is kind of cool when you think about it. But it was a deadly game that they were playing because the Soviets were launching missiles from the ground and from their aircraft to try to take down these bombers, and the EWO was trying to jam their radars, throw off their heat-seeking missiles, and generally keep themselves alive and get back home. But how would you get back home? Let's move up front and let's see where the pilot and co-pilot were. To my left is where the pilot would sit, and I'm sitting where the co-pilot would sit. Now, one of the things you're probably looking at already is there are a lot of bells and whistles in here. You got to remember the B-52 had 8 engines, which means 8 throttle levers and all of these gauges for the corresponding engines. You've got fuel flow, you've got RPM, exhaust temperature, pressure ratio, all these kind of stuff that, you know, you don't have to look at a lot, but you definitely got to keep your eye on. The stuff you really need to keep your eye on, luckily, like any other plane, is always right in front of you. It's the 6-pack. It's your turn and bank indicator. It's your altitude. It's your airspeed. All that important stuff that you really need to know to fly. Now, one of the other things you're probably noticing is some of this stuff looks kind of beat up. Well, there's a reason for that. In 1998, a gentleman came by, before Lowry was really well populated. He climbed up on a ladder and he doused the cockpit section with gasoline and he lit this plane on fire. Now, why did he do that? Well, he was protesting America's landmine policy. Now, what does landmines have to do with B-52s? I got no clue, but in his mind it made perfect sense. Luckily, he was caught, and this plane had some damage to it, to the tune of about $250,000, but luckily our volunteer corps came to the rescue and was able to repair this plane. Otherwise, sadly, she probably would have gone to the scrap heap. Not a really fitting end for such an amazing plane. So as I sit here, I'm struck by how much of the original equipment is still in here, all the gauges and dials, and it gets me to thinking, what's the difference between a 64-year-old B-52 and a B-52 that, well, is maybe 60 years old, but is still flying for the Air Force? I know there've got to be changes, you know, technological advances and whatnot, but luckily, there is an Air Force base not too far from here that still flies B-52s. So I'm thinking, why not Minot? Okay, so you can tell we are no longer in Colorado. We're in Minot, North Dakota. Everything you've ever heard about it is true. It's cold out here, and I've only been here a couple of hours. But Minot is also home to the 23rd and 69th Bomb Squadrons that fly the B-52 like the ones we have up front, except mucho modernized. And we are gonna see some of that stuff up close and personal. But right now, we're gonna go talk to the base historian because I'm freezing, so let's go! Did you know that Minot Air Force Base is one of 2 B-52 bases in the United States and also one of the areas where we store some of our nuclear munitions? In fact, if this base were to secede from the United States, it would be the 3rd largest nuclear power in the world. Minot Air Force Base is also home to over 5,000 military personnel who have access to their own grocery store, neighborhoods, and even a fitness facility. Now it's time to meet up with the historian Rob Michael to understand how B-52s and the 5th Bomb Wing found their home in Minot, North Dakota. So, give me a little bit of background on the 5th Bomb Wing. How did it get here? What did it do before it got here?
So the 5th is a really old unit. It started out in 1919 at Luke Field in Hawaii. If you ever look at an overhead image of Battleship Row, right, that's Ford's Island, and that was actually Luke Field.
So the 5th is kind of famous because they bombed a volcano.
They did. Mauna Loa.
Give us a brief overview of what the heck that was all about.
It's an interesting story, and it's debatable on whether or not it worked. So the volcano was erupting, and the bomb group happened to be there, right, at Luke Field. So a scientist came up with the idea to actually bomb the lava tubes to save the city of Hilo from the volcano. The 23rd and 72nd got in their Keystone bombers, the Keystones, and decided to drop some bombs on the flow. So.
That sounds like something right out of an episode of Gilligan's Island.
Exactly.
That's just kind of goofy. Now that we've got the 5th Bomb Wing established, when did it come to Minot, and why Minot?
Well, the shortest path to Russia or to the Soviet Union is over the pole.
Right.
So all these northern tier bases that were being built were kind of usurped by SAC, right, and taken over.
Okay.
You know, and SAC said, hey, let's put some bombers up there.
How does the Air Force come around and just grab the land? Is it literally a land grab and just say, hey, we're the Air Force and we get to do what we do? Or is there a process?
So the citizens of Minot heard that the Air Force was shopping North Dakota to put in an Air Force installation. So the residents and the local business owners said, hey, this is going to be a great thing for the city, right? It's going to bring us a lot of money. Those local businesses and the citizens donated $50,000 in the late 50s
No kidding.
to buy the land where Minot Air Force Base sits.
I just don't see that happening today.
I don't either.
That's amazing. All right, so I'm standing here in Dock 8, which in Air Force parlance means, well, hangar. And this guy is Captain Arpin. Now, you're actually a B-52 pilot.
That's correct.
That is very cool. Before we get to that, tell us about where we're standing.
So Dock 8, as you said, a hangar is one of our more recently built hangars. And as you can see behind us, we do have one B-52 currently in the hangar. There's actually room for another B-52 in this hangar so that maintenance operations can continue even when the weather is bad outside.
That is nuts. And considering Minot, North Dakota in the winter, you don't really want to be doing that stuff outside.
Not at all.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been flying the B-52?
5 years in the B-52 now, or closer to 6, but 5 years here up in Minot.
How do you like it?
It's a lot of fun. I tell you what, the B-52 requires a lot of actual flying as opposed to a lot of the newer airframes.
Oh, that's nice. Well, what I'd like to do is just kind of do a walk around and kind of talk about some of the salient features of this plane. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go see. We're standing here in front of the monster engines on the B-52. Captain Arpin, tell us about these things.
All right, so we're standing in front of engines number 1 and 2 of the B-52, which iconically has 8 of these TF33 turbofan engines.
Now, we've been seeing these guys take off all day long, and they're super smoky. What's going on with that?
Generally because these are a slightly lower efficiency engine than you're used to seeing today. And what you're seeing is actually a little bit of the imperfect burn coming out of the back of the engine. We can carry up to 290,000 pounds of gas as a full fuel load.
So, just in comparison, my super awesome Subaru Crosstrek holds a whopping 16 gallons. That's a whole lot of Subarus in that plane right there. And you guys refuel in the air all the time.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Very typically on most training sorties and definitely on any sortie that we're taking out any further than outside of the continental US.
That's awesome. Well, let's keep walking around because there's way more that we want to talk about. We're in the bomb bay right now. And this looks really super scary. What is this?
So what we're looking at here is called the conventional rotary launcher. It's actually one of the newer features that we have, and it allows us to drop JDAM and other precision-guided munitions where we actually have the capability to talk to the weapons from the bomb bay, whereas what we used to do is only release our gravity weapons, so really no inertial guidance, no any kind of guidance out of the bomb bay. So this gives us the capability now to launch smart weapons out of the bomb bay. And allows us to really increase the overall amount of smart weapons.
So all these plugs literally get plugged into the weapon, and then the weapon and the plane talk to one another.
That's correct. So all these, there's a plug at every single one of the 8 stations, which can carry up to a 2,000-pound smart weapon. So each one of these plugs actually allows the weapon to talk to the aircraft and allows us to program into that weapon in flight where we want it to go.
Taking a tour around this aircraft got me to thinking, how much of the aircraft is original? Well, everything you're looking at on the outside is actually from the 1960s. Yeah, the tech on the inside has been replaced, but considering there's no Boeing store you can go to and say, hey, I need a new front landing gear, maintaining this old girl for over 50 years is impressive. Oh, big difference though, the tail. So one of the things I really wanted to point out was this guy, the tail. Ours is a B-52B, which means it's got quad 50s in the back. This has got nothing.
What you definitely notice here is absolutely correct. They've removed the gunner position, and it really kind of came about when we realized that there's really not much more a gunner can really do for us in the way of defense with long-range missiles and stuff like that to defend against.
Yeah, no
a gunner really isn't going to take care of that.
I am loving this. I could spend all day checking this out, but I really want to see the inside. Can we go to that?
Well, as you can see behind me, Matt, we've got a little bit of active maintenance going on, so we can't check it out right now, but we can come back later. And when we do, I'm going to bring out a full B-52 crew, and they can show you around the crew compartments and talk to you a little bit about what they do in the aircraft.
Seriously? Okay. I can probably wait for that. Maybe. Waiting for the B-52 crew to get ready, I headed out to the flight line to watch some B-52s take off. Man, to actually see these guys fly was amazing. Big, yes. A bit smoky? Yeah. But what do you expect from a plane that your grandfather could have flown in? Back inside Dock 8, it was time to meet up with Arpin's crew and get a tour of the inside of the plane. Up first, we joined Captain Henry in the cockpit. This really doesn't look that much different than the aircraft that we have at the museum.
No, and it wouldn't. She's got some new tricks, but she has not changed a lot as far as just the aesthetics internal to the jet. So we have our ADIs, altimeters, VVI, things you would expect to see in a your normal aircraft. But as far as systems are concerned, some of your systems that keep the jet operating, we have our hydraulics off to the left-hand side there, and then you've got your instrumentation right here for what's going on with the engines. You've got oil pressure up across the eyebrow panel here. We've got electrics off to our right-hand side here as well, so kind of some big picture systems.
It does look so similar to what we have, and ours is literally the second oldest.
Yep, it really does look the same, but this old girl still has some teeth on her, and she still goes out and does the mission. So
yeah, well, like they say, this is your grandfather's B-52.
It really is.
Well, thank you so much. I think what we're going to do is we're going to climb around and see some of the other positions.
Okay, sounds great, Matt. Have a great time.
Okay, Sarah, where are we?
Well, Matt, we are in the electronics suite of the B-52. So we also have the retired gunner position sitting next to me. We are upstairs facing backwards behind the pilot and the co-pilot.
All right, so what exactly do you do as an EWO?
Obviously, with the gray curtain behind me, a lot of my equipment is classified, but what I do, my primary mission is defense of the jet and defense of the crew. If you go around the world, each country has surface-to-air missiles, better known as SAMs.
Right.
And when they want to take a shot at an aircraft that's thousands of feet in the air, they have to radiate with a radar. Each threat system has an original sound to it, and we study those so that we can identify it as soon as possible on board.
So when you say you listen to it, are you getting a tone?
Yeah, so we have our headset on, we get audio. A lot of people in our career field will call it the beeps and squeaks. And once I determine what threat or SAM that is, I apply the appropriate jamming package to it. So when they do take a shot, hopefully they miss.
So literally through the beeps and squeaks, you can go, okay, that's an SA-21 or whatever.
Correct.
Wow. So you're pretty good at your job, aren't you?
I try to be. There's a lot of studying.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, and you've got a lot of people counting on you.
Exactly. So this is the only crew compartment that has one individual. So there's a lot of pressure riding on it, but you also get a lot of reward too, because you're the one who's going to bring the crew home.
Very cool. Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm now in, let's just face it, a black box.
Yep, black hole.
And I'm with newly minted Captain King Fisher.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations on the promotion, Captain.
Thank you.
So tell me what you do down here in this very tiny black compartment.
Yeah, so this is the, we call it the offense compartment. It's where the navigators or the weapon systems officers sit. We work together because a lot of times we'll be trying to navigate and employ weapons at the same time. Hence, two people down here because it can get kind of busy. But yeah, it's kind of our primary thing is to navigate and work with the weapons.
I noticed that you guys have the same kind of tunnel situation that we have. Do you guys ever go back there, or is it just kind of sealed up since there's no gunner?
We go back there.
Really?
Not on every flight, but yeah, when we need to, when we drop weapons out of the bay, for dropping, like 27 gravity weapons out of the bay, we don't always have a way to verify that all of them released and that we don't have any weapons still back there.
Okay.
So in that case, what we'll do is we'll descend down and we'll depressurize, and then we'll send one of our crew members, one of our weapons qualified members, back through that door, and we'll go back into the bomb bay and make sure all the weapons are gone. And then we call back here and, thank the Lord we're still alive. No, no, it's not too bad.
How's it like flying in this box?
I personally love it. It's one of those things you get used to.
I mean, there's a lot going on in here, I'm sure.
There's a lot going on, and then you don't have windows. We have a FLIR, which works on most jets. So you can kind of get something of a picture outside, but for the most part, when you're banking and turning, and it's dark down here, it's fun. I like it. I enjoy it. I don't want to do anything else. So.
Well, excellent. Well, I am going to stay here for the next month or so. I think the camera crew might go out and film other stuff. But
there's actually like enough room down here to lay down and sleep. If,
oh, seriously?
yeah,
oh, I am totally moving in.
Yeah, yeah.
Totally moving in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I think it'll be just fine.
This is an aviation icon, a timeless aircraft that has been literally flying for generations. From crawling through the second oldest B-52 in existence to watching active B-52s take off at Minot Air Force Base, and even taking a tour inside with a full crew, we've taken you behind the wings of the B-52 Stratofortress. Hi, I'm Matthew Burchett, and this is a behind the wings at Denver International Airport. That's Lucifer. You don't want to make him mad. Now I say this a lot, but how cool is this? You guys are getting a really inside look at this thing. Not everyone gets to do that. Bam! 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 In the 1920s, Denver was in serious danger of being left in the dust by Cheyenne as a major air hub. So, the Denver Aeronautical Commission decided that if Denver was to become a major air transportation center, it needed to create the best airport facility between St. Louis and the West Coast. They did, and Denver Municipal Airport opened on October 17, 1929. In 1944, Denver Municipal was renamed Stapleton Airfield after Ben Stapleton, Denver's mayor when it was built and a major proponent of aviation. Then, in 1964, the airport was again renamed to Stapleton International Airport. By the 1980s, Stapleton had expanded as much as was practical. Air traffic continued to increase, but the airport was exceeding its capacity to handle all the traffic and passengers. One major limitation was that the parallel runways were too close together and couldn't handle simultaneous instrument approaches during low visibility. After years of planning and construction, Denver International Airport was opened on February 28, 1995. At that time, DIA was the first new major airport to be built since Dallas-Fort Worth more than 21 years earlier in 1974. Before we go and check out DIA, let's look at an artifact in our collection that encapsulates Denver's airport history. This is the Progress of Flight mural, and it was actually in Stapleton Airport up on the mezzanine level. Now, not an artifact is Jeff Reddy. Jeff, thank you so much for being here. Now, your dad was the architect of record for Stapleton Airport, which means that basically he designed the thing.
That's right. Actually, my dad started working at Stapleton back in early 1950s and continued working really up until its closing.
So did he actually have something to do with this as well?
Yes, this mural was part of the terminal that was built in 1962 roughly and opened in 64. He worked very closely with a local mosaic tile manufacturer, working out the scale and the colors and making sure everything fit. So I was really happy that it was able to be salvaged and moved and is here in the museum now.
Yeah, well, we are really glad to have it because it is a really interesting piece. Now, you also brought some stuff from your own collection that probably nobody has ever seen for a really long time. Can we take a look at that stuff?
Let's do. I'd like to share it.
Oh, excellent. Wow. This is really cool. This is something that you just don't see anymore. This is an actual watercolor.
Right. This is dated 1952. So at this point, Denver had realized they really needed more terminal capacity as well as airport capacity. So this was a major project for Denver to construct a new terminal. Shown here is we have kind of the old iconic clock tower that remained in place even as Stapleton expanded, that clock tower stayed, and the new terminal was built around it. This area is a corporate center for United Airlines. Denver was United's home base. It was their home up until the early 1970s. So United had a presence right on the terminal. It was their main offices.
And now tell me about this one. I can see there's the clock tower again, but this is completely different.
Well, this was the concept that was started in the early 1960s because it was, again, obvious to Denver that they needed much more capacity. Jets were becoming passenger aircraft of choice, and Denver had to keep up with what was expanding. So this was a concept at the time. It was not exactly followed. As you can see, this has a very large hotel. Denver was maybe a little in the forefront of thinking of a hotel at their airport. Not many airports had done that. And so that was part of the concept that was not followed through, but really the terminal, as it was constructed, pretty well followed this rendering.
I love that they kept the clock tower. I wish we had kept it. And now here, again, there's the clock tower, but they've kind of followed this circular pattern. There's no hotel, but this is dated 1979, so this is definitely Stapleton.
This is how, as it was finally constructed. As you can see, we do have a new control tower, which
is still there.
That's the only element of Stapleton that's still in place. But
and then knowing that even with all of this, we were going to need something more, bam, you guys come up with this, which was a concept in '67 for a whole new airport.
Exactly. I think it became very apparent to the Denver leadership that the airport was going to have to move sooner or later. So this was a concept that was developed in the Rocky Mountain Arsenal.
Oh, so this was not really even thought to be out at the DIA area?
Not at this point. I think even then we realized the Arsenal was going to be a candidate, and it was looked at even when DIA was built, but it wasn't really too restrictive in the amount of land that was available at the Arsenal, which really directed them to move further east and get a lot more real estate for a much bigger airport.
Yeah, like they always do. You got to have more land. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being here and bringing these amazing photos and renderings. These guys have not seen the light of day in what, 30 or 40 years probably?
At least.
Wow, that is really cool. That is really special.
Now that you have the backstory of Denver's airports, it's time to head over to our friends at DIA to get an exclusive behind-the-scenes tour of their facilities and uncover their deep, dark secrets.
So this is the Jeppesen Terminal, and we're in the Great Hall. And as you can see, it looks kind of a little bit slow today at TSA. How many people, though, do you have come through every year?
Over 61 million passengers navigate through our facility.
That's a ton of people. What's kind of the average wait time?
On an off-peak period, it's going to vary. We try to maintain approximately 15-minute wait time or under.
And DIA has 3 areas for TSA security.
We do. We have 3 checkpoints. We have 1 checkpoint that remains open 24/7.
Okay.
And then the other 2 checkpoints are generally open from 4 a.m. to approximately 9 p.m.
So one of the things that's going on right now is DIA is making some huge changes, and this is actually one of the areas where you guys are going to make changes. Now, right down in the middle, right there with kind of the white baggage looking thing, that's one of the changes you guys have already implemented already.
Traditionally, screening lanes have been more linear, and so you basically waited for the person in front of you to process through the screening lane. Right. The automated screening lanes allow multiple people to divest or to take off their screened items at the same time. And so you can see there's multiple drop locations, and you're not waiting for the person in front of you. You can actually progress forward even if the person in front of you hasn't unloaded in preparation for that screening process.
Has that sped up the process?
They say there's a significant increase on those particular lanes, and so hopefully the idea would be that once we have all lanes
for automated screen lane that will definitely significantly increase our throughput.
Now it looks like there's not a TSA agent actually looking at the screen. So when you say automated, it runs through the X-ray machine, and the X-ray machine figures out through an algorithm or something that if there might be something in the baggage that they need to flag?
The technology assists the staffing of TSA to identify any item that may be a threat or requires additional screening.
Now, one of the things that I've been told that will be a drastic change in here, and you don't have to answer this question or not, but right now this is not really ideal because here we are looking straight down, and if I go right down to that far end, that's a clean area, and if I really wanted to, I could drop something to somebody.
Yeah.
So that's going to change.
That is going to change, and there is a vulnerability of having this vantage point over the checkpoint. And I think that again is why we're moving the direction we are to have the checkpoints on level 6.
That makes sense.
From the Great Hall, I headed outside to get a tour of the airfield. My guide for the day was Director of Operations Bruce Getz, who showed me the amazing features of this airport. Did you know that DIA has 6 runways, each dedicated either to takeoffs or landings? And these babies are huge. In fact, DIA has the longest commercial runway in North America at 16,000 feet long. Now, I know a lot of you have wondered, hey, why is this airport so far from downtown? Well, the forefathers who envisioned DIA had long-term growth in mind. Currently, the airport sits on roughly 53 square miles of land. That's enough room to build 6 more runways without purchasing another acre of land. Most airports located closer to cities have land restrictions and struggle to build even 1 runway. So it won't be long until DIA jumps to the 4th busiest airport on the continent. Next, Bruce and I headed up into the ramp tower, which controls all the traffic in the ramp area.
What we're looking at out these windows is literally all the movement of the aircraft to and from the gates, out to the taxiways, all that kind of stuff. And right now we're in a lull,
That's
as
correct.
you call it.
A little bit of a slow period right now. This is between banks, this early afternoon period. And as you mentioned before, the FAA tower wants to only control runways and taxiways, and they want the rest of this area in the center of the airport around the concourses. They don't want to manage that, so that's left up to our controllers and the United controllers to manage all the movement of aircraft coming into and out of the gate area. The controllers up here have a lot of neat tools to manage things safely. Up above is our Aerobond system, and that's a real-time display of arriving and departing aircraft.
So this is, I mean, literally real time.
1 second updates, so
Wow.
as that 757 is making the turn up there, we'll immediately see him making the turn.
So when we were boogieing around out there in your super awesome ops truck,
Yeah.
we would have shown up on this.
That's correct, and I don't see another vehicle, but our vehicle would have said Ops 5 because it has a transponder in it that's broadcasting our signal, which is Ops 5. That's the whole goal of being out here, is just safety, knowing where everybody is in relationship to everyone else.
It also keeps you from going out there and taking a nap.
Well, I suppose we could see if you parked in one place for a long time. We do operate this facility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's always somebody up here. And so they're a great dedicated group of people that really know their job well and making sure this airport is running at maximum efficiency. And the passenger is everything. And the reality is, yes, there are going to be hiccups. There's going to be hiccups here the same way there are in Atlanta or Chicago O'Hare. But there's a lot of folks behind the scenes making sure that that delay, if it's there, is really minimized.
Not only is the ramp tower helping you make your flight on time, but so is the snow removal team. DIA is famous for having one of the largest snow removal teams in the world. Let's head over to the Field Maintenance Center to see how these guys operate.
Whoa, that is an amazing plow. What's even more amazing, this guy, Rich Brannon, he's the AD of Field Maintenance for DIA. How cool is that job? So Rich, You guys are like a tiny little, well, not even tiny, you're like public works.
Right, yeah.
Just for DIA. Tell me what you guys do out here.
So we are a big department. We're about 150 strong. We pretty much do all the preventative maintenance here at DIA. We have basically 2 seasons, summer and winter. Summer we do basic maintenance. We do paving, we do some concrete repair, we do some repairs on the runways and taxiways, we do erosion, fence repair, we do mowing. We have 53 square miles we basically maintain.
Whoa, seriously, 53 square miles?
53 square miles, and we're...
You guys don't use handheld mowers?
No, only if you're on the bad list or something. But no, lots of tractors, lots of mowers, tons of equipment. We're 365 days a year, so we're here all time, and then we transition to the snow, which is today.
Yeah.
And we have over almost 200 pieces of equipment just in snow alone. And we take care of the airfield, so runways, taxiways.
So speaking of snow removal, DIA has a 16,000-foot runway, which is literally the longest runway
In North America?
How do you plow that and not just back up planes for hours and hours?
Right, so with the 200 pieces of snow equipment we have, we divide the airfield in half. So we have an east side and a west side runway team. That runway in particular is on the west side. So we have approximately 22 pieces of equipment that clear that runway alone. So we're able to clear that runway anywhere between 12 to 15 minutes. And we have certain formations that we do that in, depending on the snow and the wind. So we'll go down the runway in a certain way, and it's one pass and the runway's clear.
If I worked here, I would constantly be in trouble, and I would be that kind of broom.
Rich took me inside their storage area to see their whole equipment collection, and it was nothing short of impressive. With over 200 pieces of equipment, you can be assured that any snow falling on DIA is efficiently dealt with. Back outside, Rich had one more huge piece of equipment to show me.
This is not small.
No.
So, I mean, not only do you have this plow, you've got like a whole broom thing going on down there. What is this?
So in addition with the Beauchamp that we were at earlier, we have blowers, we have runway brooms, we use loaders, box plows, and then we have these. These are the MBs. So we have 26 of these. They are a 72-foot piece of equipment. They have a 24-foot plow, a little over 6.5 feet tall, obviously. You can stand underneath it with the 22-foot broom. And these are one of our hardest working pieces of equipment that we use. These are the ones that we use to clear the runways, and they're huge.
So why a broom versus a plow, or why a combo?
So unlike removing snow on a street, the runways have to be cleaned completely to the pavement. So you can't have any residual on the actual taxiways or the runways for airplane to kind of land and take off and transport around in the airfield.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep, so the plow actually takes off the grunt of the snow, and then the broom just basically brooms off the residual that's left that the plow leaves and cleans it completely to the pavement.
So you're literally getting, right down to
right
the
to the
bare
pavement.
concrete.
Yep, and then we treat it with sand or chemical or whatever.
So this thing is longer than a semi-truck. Yep. How much training goes into that? I mean, you don't want to just throw me in this thing because it would be a disaster.
Right, so you have to have a CDL. I mean, that's a Class B or a Class A. Okay. Most of our drivers have Class A's. We have a robust training program here. We have a separate division that actually does the training. Our guys are trainers. We have a lot of experience here, a very diverse group that knows what they're doing, and we train each other and we go through a program. It's almost all year round.
I was about to say, and that's got to be all year round.
Yep.
Even with all that training and all the equipment, has there ever been a time that the snow just got the best of you?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've had a few storms where the wind actually becomes an issue. It's more visibility than is the snow depth that we have to fight. Yeah. We're able to clear the snow. We have the equipment to do that, but 50-mile-an-hour winds and plus tend to take the visibility away. And when it becomes unsafe, then we kind of have to pull off. So we did. 2015, we had about a 7-hour closure due to the winds, due to the visibility, and it just wasn't safe to be out.
I remember that storm. That was a bear.
Yep, but we got back in it. And
yeah, there's not really any kind of windbreak out here, is there?
No, not at all. Yep, not at all.
Say I'm sitting on my plane, and I'm waiting to take off, and the snow is falling, and I'm getting a little bit angry.
Right.
What can you say to me that's going to calm me down just to, it's like, look, I'm doing my job, I'm doing it as quickly as I can. You know, what do you want people who are in the planes to know?
So, you know, our people, we're a humble group. We work hard. You know, we don't take anything for granted. We're out here for the safety of the public. We know that. We care about the public. It's, you know, it's what we do. So, you know, their families and, you know, they make major sacrifices to be out here. We're out here all the time, making sure that the airfield is clean for the passengers and making sure that everything's safe for them. So that's awesome. Yep, absolutely.
Since snow was in the forecast, I left these guys to their work and headed back to the Great Hall. Here I met up with Chief Financial Officer Gisela Shanahan to talk about the impact DIA has on Denver and what's in store for the future. So, let's see, I think it was 2017, you guys had over 61 million passengers through DEN.
61.4, it was a record-breaking year. We're on track for another record-breaking year, and we think we'll be at 64 million plus by the time we end December.
That's amazing. What kind of economic impact does that have on the Denver area?
This is the single largest economic driver in our region as one entity. The last study that was done to look at that was in 2013. At that point, we were generating 26 billion annually.
That's with a B.
With a B. So that number, as you can imagine, is much larger. The next study will be out within a year. But we impact the entire region.
And when you say region, you mean going up
That's going
Cheyenne?
into Wyoming, Kansas. Yes, we are a regional airport. We serve a multi-state region.
That's amazing. So what is your favorite part about this job?
My favorite part is every day is different. This is such a dynamic industry. When you wake up in the morning, guaranteed your day will end very different than what you began, because there's globally factors can influence what happens here nationally, regionally, here in City and County of Denver, but there are so many factors that drive what happens at an airport any given day. And for those of us who like that type of challenge, this is really an exciting place to be.
You guys are making some huge changes here. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what's going on there?
Yes, so when this airport opened its doors in 1995, newest commercial airport in the U.S. as a large airport. Right? At that point in time, we were designed for about 50 million annual passengers. Technology has changed, how we move passengers through a check-in process has changed. That's allowed us to continue to get north of 60 million in this facility, but we're preparing for the future right now. And the growth continues here in this region, so we need to be able to serve more than 80 million annual passengers out of this facility. So what you see, 80 million, more than that, out of just this one facility. So what we're doing, as you can see, the construction, is we're preparing this facility to more efficiently process passengers through, expanding our security checkpoints. We're adding 30% capacity in the gates to make sure more aircraft can come and go and deliver those passengers.
All right, so since there are going to be a lot of people who are probably either have been here or will go through DEN, what would you want a typical passenger to kind of know about day-to-day operations?
I think what people don't know about an airport is that it is literally a city in and of itself.
Yeah, no
so
kidding.
Everything you need to be able to take care of a passenger is all located here. So 35,000 people work at the airport in one capacity or another, along with hundreds of businesses. So whether that's an airline that most people think of or the airport itself, all the food and beverage services, the retail, the rental cars, all of that together creates that entire city that works together like a well-tuned machine to get everyone through and out on their way. And our job is to make that journey that you take as a passenger as pleasant and seamless as possible.
After talking with Gisela, she wished me luck as I headed down into the depths of DIA. You know what I'm talking about, the tunnels. All right, we're where everybody wants to be. We're in the tunnels underneath DIA. This is where all the weird stuff goes on supposedly, but not really. This is just where all the baggage comes. We're actually at baggage claim 17. We're underneath it. So everybody's baggage just comes right through here. It goes onto that conveyor belt. You grab it, you go on your way. No big deal. But for some reason, people believe there are all sorts of weird things going on down here. I don't personally believe it, but it's... I knew it! I knew it! I knew it! I knew it! Disclaimer, that was not a real lizard man. As you can tell, the employees here have a great sense of humor. In fact, there are over 1,000 people that work in the baggage tunnels every day. And where exactly are these tunnels, you're wondering? They actually run parallel to the train system that transports passengers to and from the concourses. After some time exploring the labyrinth of tunnels, I was ready to get back up to the surface. You never know what you'll run into down here. If you're a frequent flyer, then you know this airport. It's the 5th busiest airport in the country, and even has room to grow. From driving on the airfield with Bruce, to touring the amazing selection of snow removal equipment with Rich, and even going underground to explore the labyrinth of baggage tunnels, we've taken you behind the wings of Denver International Airport. Yeah, let's get that out of the way. I've been wanting to do that all morning. See the rest of the museum. Man, I gotta go find lizard men.
Have a great day. Be safe. Watch out.
All right, thank you. Way to go, Emily Downer.